Although there are other supportive agents who compete with Lucy's abilities, she is by far the easiest and most versatile. Right? Well, today we'll break down everything that makes Lucy powerful, but also go over some of her most overlooked weaknesses. Lucy has plenty of builds and uses, including her potential as a damage dealer, but this could all be insignificant in the face of a potentially new secret best build I've been hearing about. Let's break it down. Lucy is best known for the attack buff she gains from her EX special attack and the boars that spawn when she casts it. To be honest, that's really all there is to her kit. Depending on Mindscapes, she does gain additional value like anomaly on her EX special or crit damage when she provides her team the cheer on buff, but in most cases, Lucy simply presses her EX special, quick assists to another ally, and that's her insanely complex game plan. Even as a damage dealer who spends more time on field though, Lucy just casts her EX special for the attack increase in boars, but then simply resorts to using her basic attacks until the enemy is gone. All of this will make more sense once I break down her kit, so without further ado, let's do that. Lucy's core passive explains her boars and the way that they function. It reads that they only inherit her attack and impact stats, which makes Lucy focusing on these stats crucial to her effectiveness. Additionally, the cheer on buff, which we'll cover soon, boosts her boars attack frequency and also increases the effectiveness of the buff too. But to simplify, this is where all of her boars stats originate from. On a side note, Lucy begins any encounter with a single boar by her side, but after being hit or attacking the enemy with her EX special, Lucy summons 2 additional boars to her side. Lucy's additional ability boosts her boars by allowing them to inherit her crit rate and crit damage when paired with a Sons of Kaladin member or when she's paired with a fire attribute agent. While this sounds strong, the boars' uncontrollable and random behavior can sometimes make their contributions helpful but not always reliable. Now, I've mentioned this cheer on buff several times now, but what exactly is it and where does it come from? Well, this is where Lucy's special attack comes into play. Before we get into it though, her unenhanced special attack is rarely if ever useful and therefore not worth using. But now let's talk about the EX special attack that uses energy. Lucy's EX special costs 60 energy to perform, and it has 2 different forms that change based on whether you hold down its input. If you press her EX special briefly, she performs a line drive, which will launch a boar directly at the enemy, dealing fire damage. But if she holds down this button instead, she launches the boar into the air. Lucy's EX special has some of her highest damage multipliers, but this is actually not her best damage dealing move. However, performing either of these versions will cause the boar to explode upon hitting either a wall or enemy, and this allows you to perform a quick assist to another ally in addition to causing the cheer on buff to appear. Now, this is where Lucy shines. Cheer on boosts the attack of all allies, bang boots, and the boars themselves up to a maximum of 600. This scales with the percentage of Lucy's attack plus a flat amount, which also increases with their EX special level. To gain the maximum 600 attack buff, Lucy needs a specific amount of attack, which I just so happen to put on a chart on screen now. Some notes about this chart that you may be interested in: at special attack level 1, she needs over 4,000 attack to reach the cap. Unrealistic, but it's the starting point. At level 3, 3,552 attack is needed, and this is when she also starts needing advanced chips instead of basics for her upgrade. At level 7, she only needs 2,860 attack, but this is when she begins using specialized chips. But now finally, here are the 2 last noteworthy breakpoints. 2,367 and level 11 is right before needing a hamster cage, aka crown to max, assuming no Mindscapes, and 2,000 attack is the breakpoint to max assuming you have her 5th Mindscape and no crown invested instead. Now, aside from the difference in length of the animation when holding or tapping the special attack button, there is also a duration increase for the cheer on buff. If Lucy holds down her special attack input, the duration of cheer on increases from 10 to 15 seconds. This can be useful and practical since her EX special provides Lucy with invulnerability when casting, and thus this can actually be used to dodge attacks while also increasing the duration of her buff. Lucy's basic attack is actually very unusual though. Unlike other characters who have a set starting and end point to their basic attack combo, Lucy is different. This attack combo has 4 parts to it, and the first 2 parts are normal strikes. However, after Lucy performs the 3rd and 4th part of her combo, she does not return back to the beginning. Instead, similar to a character like Qingyi, Lucy is stuck in a loop of performing a new alternative 3rd basic attack followed by her 4th. This repeats in a cycle of alternative 3rd basic to 4th basic to alternative 3rd basic until you manually stop performing it. Now, the boars are also pretty abnormal because they have a random rotation of using baseball bats, boxing gloves, or slingshots to attack enemies. These attacks do varying amounts of damage, but the highest damage multiplier from them comes from using the slingshot. However, the true highest damage multiplier is attached to the guard boars doing a spinning swing. They perform this spinning swing when Lucy uses her 4th basic attack, and that's where the never-ending loop becomes valuable. Despite the rest of her kit being unusual compared to the rest of her cast, her dodge-related abilities are all normal. Her dodge counter does apply fire damage if you are interested in applying anomaly with Lucy, but otherwise these skills are just for evading. Similar to her dodge, Lucy's assists do deal decent daze and will be utilized whenever possible to increase the boss's stun bar, but that's all regarding her assist. Once again, she does gain anomaly when applying this, but unlike a character like Seth or even a character like Sokaku, Lucy surprisingly doesn't care for much aside from her chain attack if you have Mindscapes or her EX special. Now her chain attack is important for two reasons. In contrast again to characters like Seth and Sokaku, her chain attack is performed very quickly and also allows her to make use of swing jazz very well. However, this isn't even the best part, since if she has her second Mindscape, she can now apply the Chiron buff when performing chain attacks or ultimates for playstyles or team compositions that include greedy damage dealers who want to be on field at all times. This is a great feature of her kit and allows agents like Jane to stay on field for longer. Lucy's ultimate is normally used for damage dealing Lucy builds only, but it is worth mentioning that this attack will reapply the Chiron buff if she has her second Mindscape, and it also provides energy to the team. Additionally, when casting and landing her ultimate against an enemy, it allows her to perform a quick assist, which can be nice depending on your team composition. There are some cases where using Lucy alongside an anomaly based team will result in Lucy's ultimate having the best effect, but this is team specific and exclusive to compositions with characters like Grace or Piper with bad ultimates. Utility aside, the damage from the skill is also pretty significant, but again, this is primarily locked to DPS Lucy. Because supportive Lucy's entire kit revolves around her Chiron buff, it's clear that her EX special is the #1 priority when it comes to her upgrades. After this, her assist, basic attacks, and ultimate can help with overall damage and daze output, but dodge is the least important. To be clear though, her overall damage output on a supported build is decent but not amazing, and otherwise the value in upgrading these skills is just applying more daze. If you are playing DPS Lucy, the skill priority changes with a higher focus on her basic attacks, and thus this being the highest priority for upgrade. But following this, her ultimate alongside her special and her dodge in last is the new upgrade order. Let's talk now about combos. First, Lucy is notoriously easy to play because, well, she's got basically 2 buttons in her kit. As a support, the combo that works best for Lucy is using her EX special to gain the Chiron buff, then swapping off and never showing up ever again. Well, jokes aside, Lucy has a few things to keep track of while in combat, and this mostly involves her Chiron buff, but that's all there is to optimizing her, right? Well, unfortunately, if you have no Mindscapes with Lucy, her gameplay actually becomes more difficult since you will need to occasionally swap to her and cast her EX special. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kana, this is a 10 or 15 second buff duration. That's a pretty long time. But when you consider the length of chain attack animations, the window to deal damage to a stunned target becomes much shorter. This is also why many characters do not using the chain attacks of characters like Sokaku or Seth, since a decent portion of the buff duration will be used up if you perform them at the end of a chain attack combo. So now, instead of simply using her EX special to gain an attack buff, she has to now time it specifically before the boss is stunned and ensure that it lasts the entire duration. Solutions or optimizations to this, like avoiding certain characters' chain attacks, will work, but keep in mind that canceling chain attacks will also have their downsides. This removes you from being able to activate swing jazz, prevents you from using the bang boo chain attack that is tied to performing multiple chains, and sometimes will lose you the valuable invincibility frames when other targets are fighting you. This, at the expense of having more time to attack a stunned enemy, can be worth it, especially if your bang boo is low level or if you aren't using swing jazz, but these are so many things to consider and make Lucy's support combo way less simple than it actually sounds. Now, if you do have her second Mindscape, most if not all of these problems are avoided or mitigated, and this is also one of the biggest misconceptions regarding Lucy. Lucy is absolutely fantastic with her attack increase and fast chain attack. However, this is way better and feels more comfortable when you're able to refresh her attack increase via chain attack. This allows her to maximize the duration of her attack increase and prevent wasted time when performing other chains, but this is only assuming you have her second Mindscape. For DPS Lucy, her highest damage actually comes from staying on field and using her infinite basic attack combo and Boars together. As I mentioned earlier though, her EX special isn't her main damage source, and so instead focus on the spinning slash and her 3rd into 4th basic attack combo for maximum damage. Continuously basic attacking triggers her highest damage multipliers and leverages the Boar's strongest moves. But before you do this, start with an early EX special to boost her attack. Now, unfortunately, a sample fight with support Lucy is very dependent on the encounter and who she's paired with, so here are a few recommendations instead. Starting the fight with her EX special, then swapping to her allies until she needs to defensive assist or reapply her cheer on buff is ideal. If possible, swapping to Lucy when other characters have long animations to their skills is also fine, like with Soldier 11's EX special, but these are minor optimizations and not mandatory for Lucy support. I do have a sample fight with a few strategies and approaches for DPS Lucy though, and this is how it begins. Start with your EX special, apply buffs from a support character, stun the boss with your Dazer, chain attack to the support, then to your stunner, and then end with a chain attack from Lucy, who begins with her EX special, uses her ultimate, and then finishes everything off with an infinite basic attack combo. Lucy's sets are actually pretty interesting since she has a few different builds, but there are a few things to consider as well. First, for all builds and playstyles, Lucy's #1 priority is to reach the max attack cap from her EX special. Therefore, attack percent on 5th slot disk drive is always her best in slot. Second, for an anomaly based Lucy, her boards do not apply anomaly while attacking, so Lucy's overall anomaly application will come from her own attacks personally. Though she does have the ability to apply anomaly through her own means, her actual burn damage is rather low since she's usually paired with someone like Soldier if she has something like Freedom Blues on. And furthermore, Soldier 11 herself usually ignores anomaly entirely and is built for crit, so this actually weakens how strong the burn damage would be by even more. And now finally, for a crit based Lucy, the damage from her boars is decent, but not enough to actually focus all of her efforts into them. Side note, sometimes Lucy's additional ability isn't active anyways, like in certain team compositions with Seth and Jane, but it is what it is. With that out of the way, let's talk now about anomaly based Lucy. This build includes a 4th slot anomaly proficiency disc, a 5th slot attack percent disc, and a 6th slot disc that can be energy regen, attack, or even anomaly mastery. But for substats, a focus on anomaly proficiency and attack percent will be ideal for this playstyle. That being said, Lucy honestly doesn't apply nearly as much anomaly damage through burns as you'd think, and therefore, although attack percent and anomaly proficiency are decent, do not expect a volcano when she applies her burn. The sets for this build include her on 4-piece swing jazz, 4-piece freedom blues if you're pairing her with someone like Soldier 11, and the 2-piece options you have here are swing jazz or freedom blues. Using something like Inferno Metal for the 2-piece element damage percent is also fine, but keep in mind that the new sets for 1.2 may also work as well. Chaos Jazz also provides decent value since it similarly gives 30 anomaly proficiency, but it's something that needs to be farmed after 1.2 releases. For crit focused Lucy, the build changes drastically. This has a 4th slot crit rate or crit damage disc, a 5th slot attack percent disc, and a 6th slot attack percent or energy regen disc. And the substats follow a similar pattern and fixate on attack percent, crit rate, and crit damage. The boars do inherit these stats, so it is important to stack these substat rules to make them do more damage. However, for sets, here are a few options. Lucy built for crit as a support will definitely stay on swing jazz to maintain the damage increase to the team, but a main field DPS Lucy build can change between Woodpecker 4-piece and Inferno Metal. Both of these setups are fine and have their own pros and cons, including damage and versatility, but as with all characters and sets, just use what rolls better. For her 2-piece options, look no further than swing jazz if it isn't the 4-piece set effect, and otherwise Woodpecker or Inferno Metal since both increase her total damage or effectiveness. And finally, for the secret build that I mentioned earlier, there's actually some good value in building Lucy as a stunner or dazer. Now, hold on. Let me explain. One of the biggest issues with supportive characters in ZenlessZoneZero currently is that spending long amounts of time on field is just not ideal. If you're playing the game casually, stuff like this might not matter much to you, but for those looking to get the most out of their sets, lining up buffs, and also wish to deal big damage, this is a problem. In one of my recent Seth videos, one of the setups that I mentioned was a new experimental build with Seth on Impact, and wouldn't you believe it, Lucy can fit a similar role. She is lacking the days increase from a Mindscape that Seth has, but similar to Seth, Lucy does not spend much time on field at all. Both buffers in this case want to provide their damage increase to the team and then leave immediately afterward, and that's the core idea behind Impact Lucy. Additionally, the days dealt from her assists, EX special, and the little boars themselves actually start to add up, which makes this idea even more intriguing. Now, of course, the main reason this build even exists is because crit and anomaly Lucy both suffer from not having great value in either build. Missing her additional ability and lacking crit, or trying to apply a minor burn to an enemy that's going to get one shot by your other DPS anyway, makes Lucy's value very low outside of her attack increase. Therefore, making the most of the time that Lucy has when defensive assisting or using her EX special to then daze the boss faster yields similar results with actual value to them. Now, again, this build is more experimental and exists solely because her other builds are literally just not that good, but here's what the build consists of. For stats, she can share basically the main stats and substats of the crit or anomaly builds, with the only difference being an impact 6-slot disk drive. Her sets also change, with her now desiring Shockstar Disco as her 2-piece set effect, but her 4-piece generally doesn't matter so long as she gains the 6% impact. That being said, I find that Swing Jazz is still her best 4-piece set. And now here is a sample stat line for each of the different builds for Lucy's playstyles. 275 AP and enough attack to reach her cap or anomaly is all that she really needs to worry about. And for crit, she's looking for 50 crit rate and 100 crit damage with enough attack to reach her cap. For the third and final build, so long as you have the impact main stats and the Shockstar 2-piece effect, using whatever stat line you like on the impact build is pretty much fine. Lucy's best W engine is also dependent on build, and there are 3 best in slot options depending on which playstyle you choose, so here are your choices. For supportive Lucy builds, regardless of crit or anomaly, Kaboom the Cannon, an A rank, performs the best given the overall effect it has on team damage. Weeping Cradle comes in second, but it is an S rank W engine that surprisingly does not outperform the A rank because of its attack frequency. The Mark series of W engines is also fine if you're desperate and also depends on which teammate you're running, but keep in mind that these W engines definitely perform way worse than its alternatives. For DPS Lucy, Weeping Cradle takes the lead and outperforms Kaboom the Cannon by an insane amount since she will have way more opportunities to activate and stack its passive, but Kaboom the Cannon still does well compared to its other options. Now, to be clear, Kaboom the Cannon is still likely what DPS Lucy will use anyway, but it is worth keeping in mind. However, the final and your last resort when it comes to DPS Lucy will be the Mark engine series, with Mark 1 being the only W engine that actually provides attack percent on its main stat. That being said, its passive effect is only applicable once every 20 seconds with the 10-second duration, so this is definitely less viable than the other damage dealing options. Finally, we have the experimental Stunner Lucy build, with any S rank W engine with impact taking first and any A rank W engine with impact taking second. This includes Ambi's signature W engine Damara battery, 6 shooter if you randomly took it from the battle pass, and Precious fossilized core. But overall, impact is the most important for a stun build, and therefore anything that does not have impact is less valuable. Lucy's Mindscapes are some of the most important in the game since they not only affect her performance, they also affect how she feels to play. The good news though is that Lucy will be free in 1.2, and any progress towards getting Lucy's second Mindscape unlock is a major win. Her first Mindscape, Drill Formations, affects her overall energy, and this is decent for her overall resource management and maintaining her Chiron buff, but ultimately she doesn't run out of energy that easily. The second Mindscape is the most impactful of all since it allows her to refresh her Chiron status using chain attacks. This gives Lucy some flexibility in how she chooses to refresh her buff, and it feels very similar to Rena's first Mindscape, which is mostly a quality of life change. Overall, this is the highlight of the early Mindscapes for Lucy and the most important Mindscape to have, speaking reasonably. Lucy's fourth Mindscape though is fantastic given that it is a direct damage increase, but some of the most popular partners like Jane or Piper will not be able to utilize the crit damage from this effect. The final impactful Mindscape to address is her sixth, and it does drastically change her playstyle again. With this Mindscape, allies that have the Chiron buff can hit enemies with their EX special to drop a boar on the enemy, and this will extend the duration of the Chiron buff by 5 seconds, and it can be stacked up to 3 times with a max duration of 30 seconds. Put simply, the slightly additional damage from the boars is decent, but the biggest impact from this Mindscape is having to worry even less about the duration of Chiron. Now for teams, there are infinite possibilities with Lucy since she's usable with any team that would appreciate a swing jazz holder and an attack buff, but here are a few I found to be amazing. Jane Seth Lucy works exactly how you would imagine it would, with Jane being on field 24/7 unless Seth is applying his anomaly buff through defensive assists, or if Lucy is applying her EX special to start off the match. In general, this team is the definition of a hyper carry composition since Jane is the main damage dealer and everyone else is dedicated to buffing her stats. This also definitely feels the most flashy of all the teams and very smooth to play, but although other Jane teams may perform equal to if not slightly better, this one by far is the most turn your brain off and allows you to play very casually. Soldier Kaleda Lucy is the default composition for players who wanted to save up and avoid pulling for limiteds. With Lucy, it actually performs decently well assuming you invest in these characters. This is the traditional damage dealer plus stunner plus buffer team that most players are also familiar with at this point, and it still shares the overall goal of buffing her damage dealer's abilities as much as possible. Kaleda specifically finally gets to activate her additional ability too with this team, and this alongside Lucy's impact can actually make most enemies dazed insanely quick. This next concept for a team revolves around what we've heard and seen on stream with Caesar, but Soldier, Caesar, Lucy appears to be one of the newest best teams for Soldier 11. Lucy and Caesar together will provide a ridiculous amount of attack to Soldier 11, and this alongside the impact or anomaly build on Lucy can actually help Soldier 11's performance by an insane amount. To be clear, we aren't exactly sure what Caesar's numbers are yet, but the ability to provide a shield that allows her to tank hits and also not get interrupted while also having a bunch of attack increases is absolutely perfect. Anyways guys, that was everything you needed to know about Lucy, especially ahead of Bernice and Caesar being released released soon. Thank you again for watching. I hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to check out the rest of my socials. I appreciate it so much. Thanks again for watching, guys. Thanks for all the support. I will see you guys all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.